The Haunted Classroom. I had been teaching for nearly a decade when I was transferred to Maplewood High, a quiet school nestled in a sleepy town. The faculty were kind, the students respectful, and the building had an old charm that I found comforting. But there was something off about room 104, the classroom assigned to me. From the moment I stepped inside, I felt an unexplainable chill. It wasn't just the air conditioning. It was deeper, like the room itself was exhaling cold breaths. The walls were pale and unremarkable, but the faint smell of smoke lingered, even though no one had used the fireplace for years. I convinced myself it was just nerves from starting at a new school. The first few weeks went by smoothly, though I noticed strange things. The chalk would roll off the desk without cause. The lights would flicker briefly during lessons. And once, when I stayed late grading papers, I swore I heard faint whispers behind me. But every time I turned around, the room was empty. One Friday, I decided to clean out the storage closet in the back of the room. Among the dusty textbooks and broken rulers, I found an old ledger. Its leather cover was brittle, and the pages were yellowed with age. Flipping through it, I realized it was a list of names. At the top of each page, the words Room 104, Attendance, were scrawled in elegant handwriting. The names were unfamiliar, and the dates were from decades ago, long before this building was remodeled. At the very bottom, a hastily written note caught my attention. May 12th, last day. Never forget. Never forgive. I shuddered and shoved the ledger back into the closet, deciding it was best left untouched. The next Monday, I walked into the classroom and immediately noticed something odd. There were more desks than usual, 30 instead of the usual 25. I hadn't added them, and when I asked the janitor about it, he scratched his head and swore the room had always had that many. I brushed it off, though unease crept in. But then, during a lesson on Shakespeare, something strange happened. While calling attendance, I read out a name that wasn't on my roster. Anna Hayes? I said, glancing at the list in my hand. Silence. Anna Hayes? I repeated, looking up. A girl in the back row raised her hand. She was pale, with long dark hair that framed her face. Her uniform looked slightly different from the others, older, perhaps. I didn't recognize her, but I assumed she was a transfer student. Welcome, Anna, I said, making a note to update my records later. For the rest of the class, she didn't speak. She sat quietly, her head down, occasionally glancing at me with eyes that seemed empty. That night, I logged into the school system to add Anna Hayes to my roster. But no matter how much I searched, her name didn't appear in the database. Frustrated, I decided to check the ledger I'd found in the storage closet. There it was, in faded ink. Anna Hayes, May 12th, absent. I slammed the book shut, my hands trembling. Something wasn't right. Over the next week, more strange things happened. I began seeing other unfamiliar faces in the classroom, children whose names weren't on the roster. They always sat at the back, silent and watchful. Their eyes followed me as I taught, but they never raised their hands or participated. One day I decided to confront them. "Excuse me," I said, addressing the last row. "Who are you? Are you supposed to be in this class?" They didn't respond. Instead, they stared at me, their faces blank, but their eyes brimming with something that felt like anger. And then one of them whispered, "You shouldn't be here." That night, I couldn't sleep. My dreams were filled with flames and screams, and when I woke up, my room smelled faintly of smoke. Desperate for answers, I dug into the school's history. It didn't take long to find the truth. Decades ago, Room 104 had been the site of a horrific fire. A group of students had been locked inside during a detention session when the building caught fire. The teacher in charge had escaped, but the children hadn't been so lucky. All of them had perished. Their names matched the ones in the ledger. The next morning, I walked into room 104 with my heart pounding. I had made up my mind to confront whatever was happening. "Why are you here?" I demanded, looking at the back row. The ghostly students appeared one by one, their faces twisted in sorrow and rage. Anna Hayes stood at the center. "We waited," she whispered. "We waited for justice, but it never came. And now, you will burn like we did." The air grew suffocatingly hot. Flames licked the edges of the room, though there was no fire I could see. The students began chanting, their voices rising in a cacophony of rage and despair. Terrified, I screamed, "I'm sorry! I didn't know! Please, forgive me!" The flames flickered and died down. The students stared at me, their expressions softening. Anna stepped forward, her voice barely audible. "Remember us," she said. "Don't let them forget." And just like that, they vanished. I resigned from Maplewood High shortly after. I couldn't stay in that room, haunted by the weight of their tragedy. But every year on May 12th, I light a candle for the students of Room 104, hoping to give them the peace they never found in life.